Hello and welcome to the News9 Plus show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. The hijack of Indian Airlines flight IC814 is in the news thanks to a controversial Netflix series. Now there's no doubt whatsoever that Pakistan's deep state was involved in the hijacking. And this is the most crucial fact that this docu-series tries to gloss over. But the series has also raised several questions about the handling of the actual hijacking itself, including the fact that there was an attempt to use Indian Army tanks to try and stop the aircraft from taking off at Amritsar. From Amritsar, we know that the plane flew to Lahore, Dubai, before finally landing in Kandahar, where a week later we saw a humiliating capitulation. The aircraft and passengers were released in exchange for 3 dreaded terrorists. Now, all of this could have been avoided had the aircraft been stopped at Amritsar airport itself. In fact, Prime Minister Vajpayee's private secretary Ajay Bisaria notes that the PM had just one question: why didn't the pilot ground the plane at Amritsar? And today I have with me Brigadier Kuldip Singh to talk about the night of December 24th, 1999, when the plane landed in Amritsar. And also in the studio with me is my colleague Aditya Rajkol, who's reported on the hijacking and has been following the story very closely. Gentlemen, welcome to the News9 Plus show.
Thank you.
Brigadier Singh, I want to start by asking you to describe for us what happened in Amritsar on the night of December 24th. You were posted there, you got a call. What were you instructed to do?
Sandeep, I was commanding an armoured regiment in Amritsar at that time. And in fact, we had a dinner planned for some friends and senior officers that night. But for some strange reason, there was late, and at just a little past 7 p.m., a senior officer of the formation that we were under in Amritsar called me on the phone and gave me a brief rundown on what was transpiring at that time, and asked me that if I was in a position to move a troop of tanks towards the airport and await further orders. So we were still on the post Kargil alert, and therefore I was able to get 3 tanks, that is a troop of tanks, suitably armed, which were on alert duty, moving on their tracks, not on transporter, but on tracks towards the airport through the intervening training grounds from Khasa onwards. Now, incidentally, my superiors had also placed some specially trained infantry platoons on alert. Part of this army formation at Khasa, Amritsar,
Yes.
the tank reached a crossing point on a drain, which is just southwest of the airport. Halted there, and we waited for orders. Now, however, between I think 7 to 10 minutes later, we saw the aircraft take off, and with that, the window of opportunity for an operation by the security forces totally disappeared after the plane left.
Brigadier Singh, tell us what your orders were. Were you given specific orders to go and try and block the aircraft? Were you asked to fire on the aircraft? What were your orders generally?
No. There was to be firing. Firstly, we had carried no main gun ammunition.
Right.
And you do not use main gun ammunition against aircraft in which there are passengers. We were with the standby, the alert troop had all the machine gun ammunition. As you know, the tank has got 3 machine guns, so all the ammunition was there, and that was deemed sufficient, plus the personal weapons of the crew on their weapon. So that was there. So we had orders to go there and wait and plan out the various options that we would exercise. So what happened was that once we reached the airport, the drain, we positioned ourselves, and all that separated us from the runway and where the aircraft was a drain and a fencing. Now, if we had received the appropriate orders to go ahead, the tanks could have easily gone through this fencing and then rolled over to the runway on which IC814 aircraft was standing. At that juncture, my interaction with everyone revealed that we had very sparse information on how many hijackers were there, and how well armed or poorly armed or whatever it was they were. So, had the powers that be decided to utilize the tanks that we had brought up, we collectively had war gamed with my superiors two options. Now, the first option that we had thought out was to move the tanks and position them slightly away from the aircraft in such a manner as to deny the use of the runway to the aircraft and thereby try and impose attendant delay as negotiations were conducted to remove the tanks, etc. Now, that would have led to a delay. Now, the fact is that when fully shut down, a tank with no humans inside, it's totally, locked down, shows up as a very alarming and intimated platform.
Right.
And with small arms fire being ineffective on a tank by anyone from inside the hijackers,
Yes.
and no one to talk to on the tank, the hijackers would perhaps have been forced to communicate with the authorities through the captain of the aircraft. So that was the first option. The second option was that move two tanks to block the runway and use one to damage the front landing gear. Now, had we done that, that would have put paid to the aircraft and it could never have moved. Even the repairs would have taken at least half a day or maybe a day.
Right.
However, this move, going and ramming the aircraft, this was the option to use one tank to ram or hit the front landing gear, had the potential to panic the hijackers into injuring and killing some of the passengers.
Right.
And as I had mentioned before, at that juncture, we had absolutely no, knowledge or information or intelligence how well the hijackers were armed and that they weren't very well armed. So perhaps, in hindsight,
Yes.
hindsight is 2020 and it's easy to conjecture on this.
Right.
But these are the two options that we had,
Absolutely.
thought of.
Fascinating story there. Aditya, have you heard the story before? This is the first time that Brigadier Singh has spoken about this publicly. He has written about it in the past, but this is the first time that he's coming on air to speak about this possibility of what could have happened in Amritsar that evening, that night, in fact. Aditya, what are your thoughts after listening to Brigadier Singh?
Well, I'm still trying to absorb this because, this is huge.
Yes.
This is a big, big development. It's a big
Right.
revelation of how the Indian Army was very well prepared.
Right.
They were at the doors of the Amritsar airport. I have
Yes.
gone to the Amritsar airport
Yes, the
several
Raja
times.
Sansi airport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if he's saying he was near the drain and
Yes.
the fencing, it could have taken less than 5 minutes
Yes.
for them to actually put the, this is actually a big move that
Right.
the tanks could have been near the aircraft if there were 2 to 3 tanks.
Yes.
They could have blocked and there could have been a significant delay till that
Yes.
time the negotiations could have happened instead of plane moving to Lahore, to
Right.
Kandahar and other places. And we still do not realize that how much ammunition these people had.
Yes.
And, even Rupin Katyal,
Yes.
his throat was slit.
Yes.
But we were not exactly clear if the pistols were real at that time, if the
Right.
pistols really were being used, etc. But a significant time was lost. Another thing, Sandeep, that comes to
Yeah.
my mind was that there were two entities, or should I say there was one individual and one group, that is the CMG, Crisis
Yes.
Management Group, and NSA Brijesh Mishra.
Right.
These were the two people or the two groups that had to take a call,
Yes.
that had to realize the consequences, realize that time matters, time is of
Yes.
essence, and finally take a call. But instead, what we see Jaswant Singh engaged in a conversation
Yes.
separately, Brijesh Mishra separately trying to see what is happening,
Right.
CMG unaware of how to control things, and they are completely relying on the Punjab Police and the commandos
Yes.
to do something, but the Punjab Police also wants a go-ahead from their
Yes.
Chief Minister. They also want a go-ahead from the central
Yeah.
authorities, but they have been almost given a free hand that do
Right.
whatever you want to do, but
Right.
no instructions really coming in.
Yes.
So time is of essence when such a hijacking is
Right.
happening. And
Absolutely.
with this new revelation, it's
Yes.
amply clear that there were options.
Right.
The infantry was there, the tanks were there.
Yes.
There could have been a significant delay that could have been reached at. And
Right.
it's true that it's been 25 years.
Yes.
But of course, with this new revelation, it's clear that the government of India could have acted in a different manner.
Could have
and
acted
Rupin
decisively.
Katyal's
Yes.
life could have been saved. And the biggest of all, the plane wouldn't have reached Kandahar.
The plane
Masood
wouldn't have-
Azhar couldn't
yes.
have been, released.
Absolutely.
And that would have been massive. History of Jammu and Kashmir, history of the terrorism in India would have seen a complete shift
It's
if this
exactly,
wouldn't have happened.
absolutely, you've hit the nail on the head, Aditya. This one incident was a turning point in the Pakistan's deep state war against India, and in fact, the terrorists that were exchanged. I'm going to come to that a little later on. But
one last point that I have, because I've, after this IC814 Netflix series,
Yes.
I've tried to research each and every hijacking,
Yes.
at least 15 or 16 of them. And in one such operation, there was a person called Manjeet Singh who had hijacked an aircraft, I think, around Jodhpur.
Yes.
And taken that to Amritsar. He wanted it to go to Lahore.
Yeah.
And there was an operation launched by the commandos of Punjab Police
Yes.
at the airport, and Manjeet Singh was killed.
Yes.
He was an electrician.
Right.
Who wanted basically Akali Dal and the Prakash Singh Badal government to be there,
Yes.
etc. So there have been operations there, and who better than the Indian Army to do
Yes, who better than the Indian Army? And thank you, Brigadier Singh, for highlighting that very unknown chapter of the IC814 hijacking. But, did you go back, Brigadier Singh, and speak with your colleagues, your superiors, about this whole operation? And, is there a sense of, wistfulness, like what could have been if we had stopped the aircraft there in Amritsar that night? The history possibly of the whole operation would have been very different. Of course, as you mentioned yourself, hindsight is 2020. Hindsight, vision, it's perfect vision, right? But it's always instructive to study what went wrong. And I was reading this piece by KPS Gill where he mentions that, there were so many authorities, there were so many people who were calling, there were so many lines of communication that nobody really knew what was going on. What's your appreciation of this, Brigadier Singh?
See, I am not privy to the, at that time, at that juncture, we were very busy with, getting information and, waiting for the orders.
Right.
So it's much later, when I was in the National Security Council, that we understood what exactly had gone down.
Right.
And a little later when we saw the classified, post-even analytic, reports, etc. and all that. But my point is that there was utter confusion. Nobody really knew, what these terrorists had. And to a fair extent, people had tried to assume the worst. And everybody seemed petrified that in case they launch an operation. In
Yes.
fact, in a very lighter note, I mean, I'm not trying to make light of this issue,
Yes.
but, me and the squad commander and there was a young captain with me, we were just, after the plane left, we were just joking among ourselves. Not joking really, we were just, having a light-hearted conversation. And, someone said, sir, if you had given the orders, there would have been two things. Either you would have been a hero, or you possibly would have been lined up and shot in case, they were I mean, it's very easy to say in hindsight that, they were lightly armed, and we did discuss that,
Right.
and very frankly, there was that I could have been, our regiment could have been,
Yes.
or the formation could have been very heroic, or, if they had large number of weapons and they had decided to massacre a large number of people, we would have been responsible. So, I mean, those are the dynamics which went on.
Absolutely.
I think one of the main features was this issue of this fear of casualties.
Right. Absolutely. Fear of casualties. And, knowing you all these years, Brigadier Singh, I absolutely no doubts in my mind that if you had been given the orders, you would have charged with your tanks, and possibly the history of the subcontinent would have been very different.
True.
But, Brigadier Singh, I want to ask you, if you've seen the Netflix series, what are your thoughts about what actually the filmmaker has tried to convey in the Netflix series?
I have not watched the Netflix series, and therefore I'm not in a position to proffer any comment about the veracity of authenticity. You see, as Director Intelligence Coordination of the Defense Intelligence Agency, I've helped and raised, operationalize the DIA.
Right.
So virtually from 2002 onwards till 2016, and in my later position as the Principal Director in the National Security Council Secretariat, I was heading the Defense Wing, whose charter was also included intelligence gathering and handling at the operational as well as strategic levels. I was privy to the post-even classified analytic reports. So we really know what went down, and what went up and how the whole thing transpired.
Right.
But there is one comment I would like to add. This fear of casualties
Yes.
is what really has led to all this. Israel's Hannibal Directive, which was
Right.
outlined, if you recall, in 1986, I think 1986,
Yes.
and likely named after Hannibal, the famous general of ancient Carthage,
Right.
who took poison rather than be captured by the Romans,
Right.
allows the Israeli security forces to open fire on enemies, even if when they
Yes.
are holding Israelis
I
hostage,
actually,
even to the
Brigadier
risk.
Singh, I'm going to come to that question, in a few minutes. But I just want you to dwell on that aspect that you mentioned, that you've studied the IC814 hijacking very closely when you were in the national security establishment. What your mind really went wrong? We're talking about the real hijacking now, not the Netflix series. But when you studied that, as a military professional, as an military intelligence professional as well, what actually went wrong to your mind? Was it this multiple chain of command, multiple cross wires, nobody in charge? The kind that we saw in 2611. Tell us, as a military intelligence professional, what actually went wrong here?
See, a fair amount of that is still classified, and I would not like to talk about those issues. But the fact also remains that once the plane had landed at Amritsar,
Yes.
every effort should have been made to ensure that the plane was not allowed to take off. Was not
Right.
allowed to take off
Right.
from Amritsar.
Yes.
And so that is actually where the thing, and I think one of the basic thing was, like very rightly you mentioned, the multiple chain of commands
Yes.
and the, inability to take a decision on this
Right.
entire issue.
Right. Absolutely. Multiple chain of command,
Had,
inability
somebody
to take
down the
a
line,
decision.
everybody seemed petrified of the
Yes.
fact that the hijackers had threatened to kill,
Right.
and injure or maim or kill various people. So that is,
Right.
I think, what acted as a constraining factor.
Yes, absolutely. And Aditya, it's been 25 years, and we have to actually thank the filmmaker for making that lousy documentary. But on another note, to actually, revive our whole telling of that shameful incident. 25 years later, do you see merit in issuing a white paper in what actually went wrong, so that we learn lessons from it?
Absolutely, no doubts about that. I mean, Israel does that
Yes.
in many ways, that they learn from mistakes.
Right.
They do not repeat mistakes. And I'm sure we have also done that internally.
Yes.
The National Security Council Secretariat or other security and intelligence
Yes.
wings of the government, they often go to the drawing board again
Yes.
and try to understand the loopholes, the mistakes that were committed. But in this particular case, again, I'm also glad that this documentary came in.
Yes.
Not that great. I've been repeating from the very first day, apart from the facts, apart from the realistic image or the nuances of the
Yeah.
documentary, it's a badly made documentary, even
Yes.
from standards of a filmmaker,
Right.
where cinematography is concerned. But, it's important to understand, because IC814 is one such historic event
Yes.
that has shaped India and Pakistan's history in many
Right.
ways.
Absolutely.
The kind of terror attacks that Masood Azhar did, the Daniel Pearl killing, the
Yes.
9/11 attacks, Umar Sheikh, Mushtaq Latram,
Yes.
and biggest of all, Masood Azhar,
Yeah.
who are alive right now
Yes.
in Pakistan and continuing to get, state, they are almost state guests.
State guests,
So it's
exactly.
important to understand. Also, a lot of reality isn't out there.
Yeah.
NSA Ajit Doval was there along with
Yes.
2 to 3 other negotiators from the IB and the RNAW.
Right.
A lot transpired there. Look at the filmmaker making mockery of it,
Yes,
having
of
a
course.
comedian character there.
Right.
Described that NSA Ajit Doval has a very serious personality.
Yes,
He has a lot of depth.
Right.
And he was engaged in a serious conversation, so much so
Yes.
that he was in touch with the RNAW chief and the IB chief here,
Right.
trying to persuade them that we need to do something, we need to
Yes.
act fast,
Right.
because lives of Indian passengers are at stake here.
Absolutely.
So even, NSA Doval has shared with me a lot of things that
Yes.
transpired during this, which I cannot say here.
Right.
But it's important to understand that at the very top level,
Yes.
at the very top of the national security apparatus of
Yes.
India, there was a crisis at that time.
Right, there was
and
a
that
crisis.
is a leadership crisis
Yes.
of not taking a call.
A leadership crisis indeed. And this point that you mentioned, Aditya, about Israel. Now, I'm going to ask Brigadier Singh this thing of, we're looking at one of the world's largest hostage sieges. It's been on for a year in Israel. Israel's citizens have been kidnapped by Hamas over a year ago. And Israel also has this point that you mentioned, Brigadier Singh, the Hannibal Directive, where Israeli forces will fire upon the terrorists, even if they've got hostages, because they don't want a humiliating surrender, capitulation, possibly of the kind that we saw in Kandahar in IC814. Is there merit in something like this for India to put a doctrine like this in place? You know, given the fact that IC814 saw the release of what Aditya just said, 3 of the most dreaded terrorists, who, as you also mentioned, the fact that they went on to carry out such horrific terror attacks, including the attack on Parliament, they've planned the Pulwama attacks as well. Is there merit for India to consider something similar that you mentioned, like the Hannibal Directive of the IDF?
The original Hannibal Directive had not, envisaged opening fire, including on the hostages.
Right.
But over a period of time, it has become a situation where if there are hostages with the abductors or the hijackers, then if they are imperiled by the fire, then so be it.
Right.
That's what it's called now. Now, the broader aim of
Yes.
the Hannibal Directive or things like that is to negate efforts by hijackers or
Yes.
abductors to hold a country, the entire country, to ransom.
Yes.
You know, one of the main reasons the government of the day was forced to release those terrorists in exchange for the passengers was the absolutely colossal amount of public pressure brought down by the relatives of the passengers on the hijacked IC814. And they were joined by politicians of all hues,
Yes.
and the government had to succumb. Whereas I am 100% sure the government had no intention of initially releasing those terrorists.
Right.
Now, these people, like the relatives of these people, are part of the same sad construct, which during normal times, orally render very eloquent sermons on bravery and nationalism
Yes.
and how the nation is above all to everyone, but are the first to give in when one of their own is imperiled. All
Right.
concerns over the nation and its security and the dimensions of that event are conveniently glossed over or abandoned.
Yes.
Now, given the post-release carnage, which is released by the released terrorist, as was brought out by Mr. Kaul, to
Yes.
me, both then as also in hindsight, Israel's Hannibal Directive holds great lessons. Hundreds of deaths attributed to the vicious actions of these terrorists post the
Yes.
release could have been avoided, and the attendant conflict and chaos that went on later could also have been avoided. Now, the problem is that in democracies, these things happen. Even India has said many times we will not negotiate with hijackers or abductors, etc., and all that. But then, you see, we tend to give in because those are the dynamics of, democracy. Now, we are a very large democracy. So, I mean, it is easier said than done. But I think, in my personal view, there's a need for the government at that time to also reach out to the people and
Right.
explain to them that, look, if soldiers, etc., the common man, when there's a war, many civilians also die or are injured or maimed. So for the cause of the nation, sometimes you have to take a call which may not be for I would say the good or the convenience of everyone or
Right.
every this. So I think there is a requirement for the government, and I'm sure that this government is tough. Okay, and they perhaps, if the time comes, I think maybe things may be different as had happened earlier.
Things may be very different indeed, and we've seen proof of that in recent years. But thank you very much, Brigadier Singh, for highlighting one of those unknown chapters from the IC814 hijacking. The fact that the Indian Army was also involved in the operation to try and stop the aircraft before it took off. That did not come to pass, and unfortunately, the battle for IC814 was lost on the ground in Amritsar, and history wrote itself in Kandahar. But thank you very much for joining us and revealing that unknown chapter from IC814 in Amritsar, Brigadier Singh. Thank you very much. Thank you, Aditya,
Thank you so
for
much.
joining us this evening to talk about this unknown chapter from the IC814 hijacking. You're seeing it here on the News9 Plus show for the very first time. It's been exactly a month since the brutal rape and murder of a 31-year-old doctor at the RG Kar Medical College Hospital in Kolkata. The protests are spreading across the country and the state. There's a long list of undesirable developments and serious administrative lapses in the aftermath of the rape murder, coupled with insensitive comments by some Trinamool Congress leaders. And this has stoked massive public outrage. There is a perception of a cover-up and the police mishandling of the investigation. Now, the TMC draws its core strength from the rural electorate, and women in particular are big beneficiaries of numerous welfare schemes of the Mamata government. But with anger now spilling over onto the streets, what is initially thought of as being limited to urban Bengal, these protests have now spread and impacted the public mood in towns and villages as well. So has this case dented the credibility of Mamata Banerjee's government? Can this be her Nandigram moment when the anger against the ruling government creates space for a new political party to move center stage in West Bengal? Also, what is the role of the TMC affiliated doctors at the RG Kar? Joining me to discuss this are Dr. Tapas Pramanik, Medical Officer, RG Kar Medical College and Hospital. Dr. Tapas was on night duty the very night of the crime at the RG Kar Hospital. Also joining us is Dr. Manish Jangra, founder FIMA. And in the studio here with me is my colleague Ashok Bagadia. Ashok, a month since this horrific rape and murder, do you see this as Mamata Banerjee's Nandigram moment with the way public protests are spreading through West Bengal?
Well, if you look at it, there are two aspects or the two ways in which you have to look at the case. First is that it's a legal case.
Yes.
And the second thing is that there is a political outpouring of the people onto the streets.
Right.
Now, if we were to look closely at the legal angle of the matter, that is before the Supreme Court of India, the investigation has been transferred from the Kolkata Police to the Central Bureau of Investigation, and now the investigation will go on.
Right.
Let's look at it from a political perspective. Now, this particular incident has definitely dented the credibility of the Mamata Banerjee government in West Bengal.
Right.
Now, she is a woman chief minister.
Yes.
And all the women basically look up to the chief minister
Yes.
to ensure that there is adequate safety and security within the state.
Right.
But what happens is that we witness an incident, a horrific incident in a medical college and a
Yes.
hospital where a doctor is not just raped but also murdered. And subsequently what follows is an attempt to cover up
Yes.
the whole murder and rape incident by the Kolkata police. So all of this combined, all these factors combined have created a dent in the image of Mamata Banerjee government and also created some sort of a problem for the image of Mamata Banerjee herself, because she is a woman chief minister. Now the problem before her is to ensure that how she regains the ground that she's lost because of this incident.
Right.
What we have seen in the last 28 days
Yes.
is that not just doctors from various hospitals across the state
Yes.
who have participated in protests demanding justice for the victim and also safety and security and some sort of a safety and security network for doctors in government hospitals. So these are the issues with which the West Bengal Chief Minister will have to deal, because if she slips from here, then there will be no way that she'll be able to claw back.
Absolutely. This could be a turning point in her political fortunes, as you pointed out, Ashok. But I want to ask Dr. Tapas this question about a month since the horrific rape and murder of your colleague, Dr. Tapas. What are the questions in your mind? What are the unanswered questions that still keep you up at night a month after this horrific crime?
Actually, this incident happened on the night of 9th August. After that, lot of controversy and lot of loopholes from the administrative side and the side from Kolkata Police. And there are a lot of suspicion has been happened in the mind of the doctors who are protesting against the administration and Kolkata police.
Yes.
Because of after the death, the first suspicion is that I was on duty from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. Tomorrow, 8 a.m. During that time, I was not informed, and our emergency team also been not informed. After that, my handover had come at around 8 a.m. and I was gone there from emergency at around 9 a.m. After that, I was informed by a group message at around 11:45 p.m. That the incident has been happened in the third floor of emergency casualty block in the chase department. But my question is that I was not informed after 2 to 3 hours. But some videos leaked out a few days after the incident that few people who are not actually attached with this college are was present in the crime at the crime scene. That is
Right.
few forensic medicine professor, senior resident, one a lawyer of ex-principal Dr. Sundip Ghosh. I
Yes.
don't know what he was doing by the time. One data entry operator is telling us he's the personal assistant of Dr. Sundip Ghosh. But actually, we are not informed that he is actually posted in the Calcutta National Medical College.
Right.
How he can go there at the crime scene? This is the first controversy which has been started. After that, the Kolkata police has been explained a lot of things which is totally wrong, totally bogus, that seen in the crime scene. They are telling us that the crime has been happened 40 foot of the seminar room where the body was found.
Right.
But a police officer or a DC central, how can he understand that the crime has been happened only within the 40 foot of the seminar room? There are no footprint present on the 11 foot of the seminar room, rest of the
Yes.
11 feet. This is the controversy. This
Right.
is the controversy has been happening. And after that, one picture leaked out where one PGT, that is named most likely Dr. Ovik De,
Yes.
he is the first year postgraduate student of surgery department of IPGMR and SSKM hospital. But Kolkata police said that he was the fingerprint expert. How it is possible?
Right.
He is actually the student,
Yes.
medical student. He is doing his MS in the SSKM. How
Right.
can he posted as the fingerprint expert under the Kolkata police?
Right.
And IMA Bengal branch repeatedly said that this is the Dr. Ovik De. He is not the Anisur Rahman as the Kolkata police as fingerprint
Absolutely.
expert.
So, Dr.
Then the-
Tapas, as you've mentioned, so there are a lot of people who were not supposed to be there on that night, and in fact, the following day, there all these unauthorized people have been walking around, tampering with the crime scene. That's your biggest fear, that people who were not supposed to be
Yes,
there
exactly.
have surfaced over there, multiple footprints all over the thing. There seems to be some effort to corrupt the crime scene or damage evidence. But I want to ask Dr. Manish Jangra this. Dr. Manish, a month after this horrific rape and murder, has the anger in the medical fraternity subsided somewhat, or are you as angry today as you were a month ago about how insistent are you on the answers that must come out from this horrific incident?
First line, thank you for inviting me, sir. First line, I would like to tell that anger has not decreased, rather it has increased. We have stopped our strike 10 to 15 days ago because
Yes.
we didn't want the patient to suffer. Because already the case was transferred to the CBI. Already we had Supreme Court has directed every state to form a committee after the FIMA intervened in the Supreme Court. The FIMA is our body of the young doctors all over India. And we are not decreased our anger toward this issue. We are totally emotionally, angrily, everything. We are connected with the case and we are following every day by different means. We are doing protests, like we are doing some candle march, we are doing some blood donation camp on the name
Yes.
of the Abhayat. Today, Maulana Medical College RDA did this blood donation camp. So every day we are doing something just
Yes.
to revive this fire that We want justice and we want justice.
Absolutely. We
the
want
Mamata government, the West Bengal
it's not
government
just
has
you,
done a
Dr.
lot of
Manish, it's
bad
the whole
work.
country that's asking for answers when our caregivers are murdered in this fashion. But tell us who your anger is directed to. Is it at the government? Is it against the authorities? Is it against the police, politicians? Who is to be held blameworthy for what actually happened on the night of August 9th?
Sir, there are a lot of people. It's not about only politician. It's about the police commissioner of the Kolkata.
Right.
It's about the principal of the Kolkata, Sandeep Ghosh. It's about the politician, Mamata Banerjee. It's about the health minister of India, JP Nadda. Because JP Nadda is not giving any note about the central healthcare protection for the doctor. He even has not said in single word that he will pass this bill of the parliament, central healthcare protection bill. And about the Mamata Banerjee, she is the health minister of the West Bengal. She is the home minister of the West Bengal. She is the chief minister of the West Bengal. She is doing the protest. Whom against she is doing the protest? She is the only the responsible person. Vipax is doing the protest. Chief minister is doing the protest. Then who should be held accountable? Why shouldn't be there president rule? Why shouldn't the president should apply the president rule there? Because the conditions are so worse. Even after that, a nurse was also, I think, murdered or raped at that time. There are a lot of incidents also happening in the West Bengal. It has totally anarchy, and it should be president rule in this. Everyone is responsible who has taken part in this whole incident.
There are several people responsible. Yes, indeed.
Their assistant, every other doctor is also the part of this.
Dr. Manish, thanks very much. I'm going to ask Dr. Tapas this. Dr. Sandeep Ghosh, very interesting character. Why is everyone out to protect him? Why is he being shielded? What is the key role that he's performed in this case?
I don't know actually who is the authority of him. Actually, he is enjoying a supreme power in our medical college, and not only in Arjikar Medical College, but all over in West Bengal.
Yes.
But one deputy superintendent named Akhtar Ali, he complained against him. Complaints in Kolkata Police, Anti-Corruption Bureau, CMO, and other Vigilance Commission. But no action has been taken against him. There are lot of controversy regarding him for last 3 years in Arjikar Medical College, but no action taken from Shastro Bhavan or any other administrative authorities. That's why he is going towards a miracle power. Miracle power, that means he enjoying a absolute power. He's
enjoying absolute power, indeed. Yes.
Absolute power. He is till after the arrest, Shastro Bhavan has suspended him after the arrest. After the arrest by the Central Bureau of Investigation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tapas. I'm just going to close with a comment from my colleague Ashok Bagaria here. Ashok, Supreme Court has just asked the CBI to file a fresh status report in this case by the 17th of September. Are you confident that this case will meet its logical conclusion, given the fact that the Supreme Court is, seized of the matter, is monitoring this case almost on a daily basis?
Yeah, see, so first let me start by saying that this is for the precise reason that allegations were leveled by doctors and other people saying that there was a tampering with the evidence, as well as there was an undue influence which was being cast by the Kolkata police in hushing up the matter, that the matter was transferred to the CBI. Now the CBI has filed its first status report in the Supreme Court, where it has suggested that it could be a case of rape involving more than one person.
Right.
Supreme Court said that we are not going to make any observation on the issue at the moment because it's a continuing investigation which is going on. But at the end of the day, it looks like that the investigation has been taken over by a central agency, a more objective agency which has no interest in protecting anybody.
Right.
So it looks to me that with the CBI taking over the investigation and the probe, the case would reach its logical conclusion. But at the same time, we have to understand that these doctors have been protesting, and today the Supreme Court has warned the doctors that if you do not join your duties by tomorrow 5 p.m, we will not be able to save you, or we will not be able to stop the state governments from taking action against you. Right. So beware, you have a duty, not just to the people of the country, but to the patients.
Right.
And in Bengal, there have already been 23 deaths of people
Yes.
who died because there were no doctors to attend to them,
Right.
and 6 lakh people in the state are suffering.
6 lakh people in the state are suffering. Very strong words from the Supreme Court there. Dr. Tapas, closing comments from you on the Supreme Court's observations today, asking the doctors to rejoin duty, failing which there will be consequences. What's your take on this?
Actually, the junior doctors are doing their GB meeting inside the hall, and they are actually the ultimate authority, and they will take the decision whether they will join or not. So right now, I can't say anything about that.
Right, absolutely. But
About the
as you just heard it from my colleague Ashok Bagaria here, the CBI has taken up the case, the Supreme Court is monitoring it. It stands to reason that this case will meet its logical conclusion. And as for the political consequences, what happens to this on the politics of West Bengal, well, we'll have to just wait and watch. Thank you for watching.